Richard Skipper celebrates. Every show is a celebration. Richard Skipper celebrates the best in entertainment. Each show, Richard delivers the artists you love, showcasing what makes them unique. Never gossipy. The antidote to a sometimes hectic world. Now, here's your host, Richard Skipper.
Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the latest edition of Richard Skipper Celebrates. What are you celebrating today? There are a lot of things that I'm celebrating. First of all, today would have been my grandmother's birthday. Well, it is my grandmother's birthday. My grandmother, Getha Wallace Skipper. It was also my parents' 62nd wedding anniversary, if my father had lived. And I celebrate both of my parents, and I celebrate everyone today. And we are also celebrating the incredible Matthew Martin Ward, who is right here with us today. And I want to also celebrate our wonderful friend, Sally Darling, who was the one who suggested that we do this show today. So we both applaud Sally. And I want to ask you, Matthew, we're going to delve into so many subjects today. But what are you celebrating today?
I am celebrating, first of all, being alive and being healthy. That's always the biggest celebration. I celebrate being in a wonderful long-term relationship. It's just, it's sustaining in my life. There's so many things in my career to celebrate that I know we'll talk about. And so we'll save those. Those are the big things. I'm alive, I'm healthy, I'm happy to be here.
Well, we're going to jump right into those things. First of all, you are in a long-term relationship. Both of us have those things to be thankful for. But for yourself, what would you say is the secret for holding on to a long-term relationship in this business? Because let's face it, it's not an easy business to be in. And we're going to cover some of those things as we go along. But you've been able to have a sustaining relationship and a sustaining career, which is something that a lot of people cannot say. So what is the secret for the two of you?
Well, I think part of it is my partner is an actor, so he gets it. And we both have to work around schedules, and he understands that I have to go out of town sometimes and leave that behind. I used to joke that the secret to a long-term relationship was inertia and denial. And to be quite honest, there were times in the 30 years when that seemed to be the sustaining thing. It's not always, it can't always be roses and chocolates the whole time.
There are thorns there sometimes.
Yeah, there are, but I
chocolates. Well, as I was doing research on your career, first of all, I had asked for a photograph of you as a 5-year-old, and you came back at me and you said you didn't have a photograph handy to show me, but you were a very adorable 5-year-old, which I cannot deny. I'm sure you were. But did you grow up either in Milwaukee or the Chicago area? Where were you from originally?
I would say originally Milwaukee. I was born in St. Louis, but we moved away when I was 1 year old. So I have no memories of that I can guarantee you are real memories and not a dream. I would say Milwaukee would be the original town. I was there through 7th grade, and then Chicago, which is where I went to school. Both of them are hometowns to me. I would say Chicago feels more like a hometown in a certain way because that's where I went to college and got my degree.
Now, do you have brothers and sisters? If you could tell us a little bit about your home life, and tell us a little bit about your parents.
Okay. First of all, I have 2 brothers and 2 sisters. Both of my sisters have passed on.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I love them very much and miss having them in my life. I have a brother in Florida who's retired, and another brother who's probably retired, living in Champaign, the Champaign-Urbana area. I'm in pretty close contact with my brother in Florida.
And did they pursue the arts as well, or was this only your bent?
Well, I was the only one who went into it as a career. My brother Bill, the brother in Florida, has always been interested in the arts. He's a technical person, and he used to do a lot of technical theater. He's done set design as well as lighting design. He also sings or has sung in men's choruses throughout the various cities that he's lived in, and he's a supporter of the local orchestra down there, and as well as a Free Fall Theater, which is he lives in the Tampa, St. Pete area, and so he's involved in the arts, but it's not his career. And I would say he's musical. My oldest sister was musical, and it sort of skipped the other 2 a little bit. My mother tells the story that when my sister Pat was receiving piano lessons at home, and the day my mother had to chase her when she had climbed up a tree was the day she said, "You don't have to take lessons anymore."
That's great. I love that. But it was something that you wanted to do. I ask about the 5-year-old self because, and I've said this in other shows, people may get tired of me saying this, but I always think that the 5-year-old self is the purest self. I say that because that's just before you start school. When you start school, peer pressure begins to get layered on. And not only do you become what the other students want you to become, but what your teachers want you to become or not. What were you like as a 5-year-old? And music started pulling you in a certain direction. And we're going to talk about that because you really made your debut at a very early age.
Well, yeah, I think that's very astute about 5 years old being a very pure age. Now, when I was 5, I had been playing piano for about 2.5 years. Again, I have to rely on my mother, who said I started when I was 2.5. I don't really remember starting to play piano. I just played by ear, and I could play. I was always playing with both hands and in any key that I felt like playing in. So I really, I don't remember when exactly music came in. I'm the youngest of the 5 of us, and I watched everybody playing the piano to some degree or another, and so I knew what the box was for. And I think the other thing that made a kind of an influence on me was phonograph records. I had a phonograph I could play with in my room. It ended up in my room, and I listened to it for hours. And I think there's nothing better for ear training than listening to a lot of music. We had classical and Broadway music in the house all of the time, as well as the children's records that I had. And I could play pretty much all of it that I felt like playing.
Now, something that I'm a real proponent of, and that's arts and education. And did you have a real strong arts and education program when you were, let's first of all start with grammar school?
It was reasonably strong in grammar school. I believe there was singing and some sort of music that was played. It was not a big thing. It really wasn't until middle school that bands became kind of an option. And I was very fortunate to go to schools that had very strong arts programs. And I played in bands throughout all of that part of my school career.
Now, according to the bios that I've read, 12 years old, you ended up playing with the Milwaukee Symphony Orchestra. How did that happen?
I think it was through a connection of my piano teacher. You know, to be honest, I'm not quite sure. I just knew that I was told, oh, you're going to be playing this Mozart concerto at a Christmas concert, and I worked on it, and I knew that I was going to be playing it with the orchestra, and that was a very exciting opportunity for me.
Now, was the excitement were there nerves also? Were you very nervous about doing this? Did you realize at such an early age the enormity of what was happening?
I'm sure that I had nerves. I'm having them now, so
There's nothing to be nervous about. Nobody is watching this. It's just you and me.
I know that. I've just been thinking about this for a few weeks, and just, you know, really, it's a good kind of nerves. I'm excited to be here, and
I'm thrilled that you're here. And I'm not going to ask you anything that you don't have the answers to already in your head.
I would say I remember that I was nervous, and there was a real sense of occasion about it. I felt confident. I knew my music, and I'd rehearsed with the orchestra, and I felt ready.
Now, when that night happened, were you able to truly enjoy and experience the moment as it was happening, or did the nerves of that evening take over? What are your recollections of that evening, or is that evening a blur to you at this point?
It's kind of a blur. I have kind of a vague sense of waiting to go on stage and walking across and taking my seat. I remember there was applause, and I must have gotten off the stage, but it really is kind of a blur.
And after that evening happened, do you have any recollections of what the aftermath of that evening was like?
Well, there was a mention in the Milwaukee Journal that said Matthew Ward played brilliantly, so I'm going to go with that.
Okay. And then, you know, not too long after that, you ended up playing in Chicago as well.
Well, that was a result of winning a competition at the school I was attending at the time, the American Conservatory of Music, and it was part of their commencement exercises. So in that case, I was playing with the student orchestra, but playing in Chicago's Orchestra Hall. That I definitely remember experiencing nerves. I remember parts of the performance. I remember a section where the orchestra sort of fell apart, and I felt like I was playing rhythm band piano to get them back into my beat. They were not the professional orchestra that the Milwaukee Symphony was. But
now at this point, as you're getting older, did you start having dreams of the direction that you wanted your life and career to take? Were you thinking more in terms of a classical career, or were you thinking in terms of more popular music?
That's a good question. I think I had some thoughts of a classical career. I would say that was more my mother's dream for me than my own.
Mm-hmm.
And as I say, we always had Broadway music around the house, and I think that was somehow really where my heart was. And it took me a while to reconcile that and sort of let go of the classical dream.
And were there a lot of opportunities for you? Did you remain in the Chicago area or Milwaukee? Where did you end up spending a majority of your, let's say, teenage years, and then your young adult years?
Those would have all been in Chicago. High school and all of the school I did was in Chicago. I did briefly move back to Milwaukee after Chicago, but all of the work I was getting, the theater work I was doing at Oak Brook and Drury Lane theaters and others, most of the work I was doing was in Chicago, so I was driving to Chicago a lot to work.
Now, were you getting jobs as a musical director in these theaters, or as a sub, or primarily what were the jobs that you were getting in the theaters at the time?
They were primarily in the orchestras. One show where I was half of the orchestra was Side by Side by Sondheim, which is a 2-piano orchestra, and that was probably one of the highlight gigs of my pre-New York days, and was really exciting. I got to work with Cyril Richard and Burr Tillstrom with Kukla and Ali. Fran was not there, but Burr and Madame Oglopus was there. I arranged I Feel Pretty for 2 pianos and Madame Oglopus. That was one of my favorite things to have done.
Wow.
Playing that arrangement for her.
And did artists start seeking you out to play for them? At what point did that start to happen? Or did that happen after you made the move to New York?
I think that happened more after I made the move to New York. There was actually a period in Los Angeles before I moved to New York, and I was the musical director there of a show called Let's Call the Whole Thing Gershwin, and it was a review of Gershwin material. George and Ira, but also Ira with Kurt Weill and his other later collaborators. And when I moved to New York, one of the cast members there also moved to New York, and we started doing some jobs around town. This was back when there were a lot more piano bars, and they would even hire singers to work with the pianists sometimes. And Rebecca Renfro and I did a few of those gigs, and we did some cabaret gigs as well.
Now, I want to go back to something you just said. You went to Los Angeles before you came to New York?
Yes.
Why did you make the decision to go to Los Angeles instead of New York?
Through a friend of mine who was from Chicago, but was going to school at UCLA. The show was put together using a lot of UCLA and postgraduate UCLA talent, and he just told the director and producer that I was the musical director they should hire. And it's partly because of my pianistic abilities, because we did there was a prologue that was a condensed concerto in F excerpt. There was a lot of Rhapsody in Blue mashed up with An American in Paris as a dance sequence, and little portions of the I Got Rhythm variations. So it was a very pianistic show to do. I think an orchestra of 9 and a cast of 8, including Patty Cohenauer.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Yes.
I'm a huge fan of Patty's. I got the opportunity to see her in War Paint.
Yes.
Did you see her in it?
Yes, I did.
The night that I went, they announced that she would be going on instead of Christine Ebersole, and there was a lot of murmuring in the audience, but I was thrilled because I had interviewed her prior, and I was thrilled that she was going to be going on.
I didn't see that performance.
Yes.
I did see a performance of The Light in the Piazza where she went on for I'm blanking on the name, Victoria Clark.
Victoria Clark, yes. So
And I was thrilled.
now after that, were you getting a lot of opportunities in Los Angeles, or did you find that there weren't that many opportunities for musical director or arranger?
There weren't a lot of opportunities. I did not have particularly any film or television contacts, and really, my being in Los Angeles, my whole life there was kind of an anomaly because I was doing live theater, and not in a black box theater, but at the Westwood Playhouse, which is about a 400-seat house. So it was not, it was not an actor showcase kind of theater. It was a full equity production theater, and doing live musical theater in Los Angeles. Plus, I did not have an automobile. So I had a bicycle that I rode a lot, and I got rides from people.
Mm-hmm. So what was the deciding factor for you? I mean, all of those things, weigh in, of course, but, obviously there comes a moment where you say, enough of this, I'm on my way to New York. Hey, New York, I'm coming your way. When did that moment happen for you?
Oh, well, I went back from LA, I went back to Chicago, and I did I Love My Wife. Now, I Love My Wife has 4 musicians on stage, and there are understudies for all 4 musicians who play the scene change cover music while the onstage band rushes on and off. In this case, it was theater in the round, so they were all rushing up and down the aisles. And I was the musical director of the offstage band, and I did get to play the show for a week in the run, but otherwise I was backstage. And one of the cast members and the onstage bass player for the show, they became boy and girlfriend, and she was from New York, and he decided to move there, and I didn't move with them, but I just decided it was time to try New York. And this was back when you could actually find places to live for less than $1 bazillion a month.
Can you tell us what year that was?
I'm so bad at years.
Approximately,
I'm going to say in the early 80s, 83, thereabouts.
Because I came to New York in 1979, and to put things in perspective, it was a very different New York than what it is now.
Mm-hmm.
So when you came to New York, had you ever been to New York before? Did you know anyone here? And how did you really acclimate yourself here?
I had been to New York before. When I did Side by Side by Sondheim, we rehearsed in New York. It was cheaper to fly 2 pianists here than to fly 3 actors and a director and choreographer and all of the other people to Chicago to rehearse. So they put us up at the Edison Hotel. And the first Broadway show I saw was Best Little Whorehouse in Texas. And when I moved to New York, I knew, the people I knew from I Love My Wife, and I knew Rebecca Renfro had moved here from Los Angeles. I knew her, and not a lot of other people. I think in that year I added up that I lived or crashed in probably more than a dozen places in a 12-month period. It took me a while to settle down and find an actual place to live.
I lived in every borough but Staten Island.
Well, I don't know if I lived in every borough, but I spent a little time in Jersey City. So does that count?
Well, it does count. I didn't get to Jersey City, so. And when did you start getting your name out amongst in the cabaret field? And you obviously started playing in the piano bars and getting a name for yourself, and people started reaching out to you.
I'd say that's about how things went. I played for a while at Broadway Baby. I had a regular night there, and I made some connections there. And out of that, I got to play for Annie Hughes.
God, do we love her?
We do. I think she was endlessly impressed with the fact that I could play Glitter and Be Gay from memory. And well, she can sing it from memory. It's only
That's true.
fair.
That's true. And brilliantly.
Yes.
And and did people start, just reaching out to you and saying, I'd like to use you as my musical director? When did you start branching out from being a piano bar entertainer, which is a lot of hard work? Kudos to you and anyone who does that job. And let's go there for just a moment.
Yeah.
What makes a great piano bar entertainer? And that's the word, not performer, entertainer.
Entertainer. You need a vast repertoire, and you need to make the room your room. I knew most of the Great American Songbook, the big things, and the show tunes, and I could do put together a show tune medley for the sing-along bars like Marie's Crisis. And I don't know if you ever got to Blanche on Long Island.
No, never did.
Blanche was basically Marie's Crisis, but on Long Island. It was the same kind of thing. And I would say that, and just being willing to reach out to people, not just to do their requests, but to try to sell a number to them that they might enjoy. I reached as far as the there was a point where I was doing enough cabarets that I just basically had to put a stop to the piano bar. I could not. The late nights were more than I could handle at the time. Do you remember when you could smoke in bars?
I do.
And that was starting to get me down as well.
I mean, I didn't smoke, but it nearly killed me. I worked at Marie's Crisis. That's where I met my husband. We met at Marie's Crisis, and but the smoke would kill me. I'd come home and my clothes reeked of the smoke, my hair, it was everywhere, and it was always there. Do you have a memory of the most difficult night that you ever played in a piano bar?
I would say it would have been some night at Blanche. It is nearly
where Long Island was that? Elizabeth was asking where that was.
That's a good question. I'm trying to remember. This whole interview is going to be a lot of this, Richard, where I don't remember some of the details of things. I'm trying to remember whether I took, for some reason, Massapequa comes to mind. It was in a strip mall, and I'm pretty sure I took the train to Massapequa on the Long Island Railroad, and got it was almost a 12-hour turnaround because the gig was from 9 to 3, and then I would get a ride to the train, and I wouldn't arrive in Penn Station until 5 or so in the morning. And really, the next day and a half were just lost to that. And I remember there was one evening where I just completely lost my voice, and had to get everyone up to sing for me. And it's very hard work.
Mm-hmm. It is hard work. And did you play auditions as well at the time?
I played a lot of auditions. Yeah, Auditions are fun to play. They really are. I love seeing who comes in with what and how they do.
Yeah, I love there's the person who comes in and says, I'd like to do this song, but not in this key, and I'd like you to start it over here, and I'd like you to transpose to this, and then when you get to this point, I'd like you to move it down here, and then I'd like you to modulate up an octave.
Oh, I know that
And then when you don't do it, they blame it on you.
Yeah, well, tough. That's tough. Now, when I coach people, I'm very much into them having their music prepared for the pianist. Basically, I encourage them to have nothing on the page except what the pianist is supposed to play. If you have a cut, cover those measures up with some clean white paper and just draw arrows if you must. Try to do the best cutting and pasting job you can to minimize the page turns, and for heaven's sakes, get it in your key. Unless it's a very, very simple song, you can sometimes get away with putting the chords in, but I think you don't do yourself a service at an audition if you have something that's like way over arranged and too much of a club act kind of thing. It's not what they want to see.
I want to talk a little bit about collaboration, because you've had some incredible collaborations in this business. I want to start, first of all, with Christine Pedi. The magic that the two of you create together on stage. Is she your longest collaborator?
I would say so. In the overall of things, yeah. We met doing Forbidden Broadway. Actually, we met doing Forbidden Hollywood. Mm-hmm. I played the end of the run of Forbidden Hollywood and then transferred into doing Forbidden Broadway Strikes Back. Was the first Forbidden Broadway that I did the musical direction for, and Christine was in both of those shows. But it wasn't until a few years later that she started using me for her regular accompanist, and I'm very proud of the fact that she sometimes introduces me by saying that I have funny fingers, and that she's so generous. She says that if you were laughing at me, half of the laughs are coming from over here, and
but you've been around the world with her. You've played in South Africa with her. You've been on cruise ships with her and everything. She's got this incredible gift. Talk about entertainer. Her name is right there.
Fearless. Yeah, what do you want to know about her? It really is.
I love her dearly. I'm just crazy about Christine. If you're watching, Christine, I'm one of your biggest fans. I love you.
Yes. Have you celebrated her yet?
I want to celebrate her. At the moment she says yes, she'll be here. So
Wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I would. What was the question?
About collaboration. She's your, but what is it about the two of you together specifically?
I think it's, as I have with a few other performers, it's kind of a psychic connection. I can tell where she's going with something. She has a way of relating to an audience, reading the audience, letting them feed and sustain her, and I can feel how she's molding her performance to that audience, and just to go along with her. It's I don't think it would be unfair to tell the fact that Christine does not love to rehearse. She likes to rehearse a few times, and then she goes off and does her own homework, and then she wants to do a show. So I have to be kind of ready for a variety of things to happen. And
a lot of great entertainers were the same way. Jackie Gleason was that way. Frank Sinatra was that way. Martin was that way. Judy Garland was that way. So she is in great company, I might add.
Yeah, that's fair enough. I mean, it works for us. I have to make really, really good notes because we evolve these arrangements that are, Christine, you talk about collaboration. Christine has very strong ideas for arrangements that are, they're very good. And quite often she'll use esoteric language to describe something she wants musically, and I can always translate it. It's and if I don't get it the first time, we'll just keep trying something until she goes, that works. It's usually a question of me playing fewer and fewer notes.
Now I want to talk about Sally Darling, because
I do too.
what you and Sally Darling create together, no one else does it. And it's not, I don't even want to call it cabaret. It's theater. It's just this alchemy that the two of you bring together with spoken word and music coming together in such a brilliant packaging. What is your process with the two of you in bringing what you bring together? And I have yet to see a show, knock on wood. I don't want to knock too loud. My dog will start barking. So what is that process that the two of you bring together when you put together a show?
Well, unlike Christine, Sally loves to rehearse, and we'll meet weekly, at regular times, even when we don't have a show date pending, and when the show date looms, we'll rehearse a couple times a week for, say, the 2 weeks before. I would say we're both purists in a certain way, and both of us have a great deal of respect for the text, and that includes the musical text. And where Christine is a stylist and will evolve a stylistic rendition of a song, Sally and I will usually work from the text, and only if we really are inspired will we go far from it. Instead, we like to go deeply into that text and try to create from there. I know that when Sally first came to me, I said to her, we're going to do Thanks for the Memory as a duet. And her only concept of it was as Bob Hope's theme song and all the parodies. And I said, no, we're going to take a look at this lyric. And it became one of our signature numbers, and one where we began to really establish this relationship that we have. That one of the things I like to do and have done with Sally is to take a song that isn't necessarily a dialogue and turn it into a dialogue. We were reviewing one of our arrangements where it starts out with her singing the Peter Allen song, I'd Rather Leave While I'm in Love. And then that goes into me singing Touch Me in the Morning. Mm-hmm. But we turn Touch Me in the Morning into a dialogue, a duet. And it actually, to me, makes more sense with the lines that seem to contradict themselves in a solo. That I say I like playing relationship with Sally. It's very, she is a tremendous actress, as you well know, and she gives a lot to work with. And
it seems to me when I see the two of you together, there's no excess weight on your show. Everything is perfectly in place with every morsel. And do you? I mean, how much do you cut away with the show? I'm sure you must come in with much more than you're going to end up with. How do you make your final decision? And do you have an outside director with your shows?
So far, we have not used an outside director at all. And I'd say we probably look at about.
Don't rock that boat, because it's what you do is perfect.
Yeah. Sally's one of the few people I know, along with Christine, who actually can direct themselves in a cabaret setting. I think most performers are better off with a director, with a good director. And Sally is also a director, and she's a good director. I'd say we probably come in with about 50% more songs than we end up using. And Sally, of course, writes all of her text and probably pares that down by 100%. I don't even know how much she leaves out before I get to see what she works with, but then it gets tighter and tighter as it goes along.
How long do you have an idea when it's time to retire a show?
It's hard to say, because we've done about, Sally and I have done, I think if you count the two we're working on now, it's got to be about 10 shows in the past that many years, almost that many years. And we do like to go into those shows and pick out individual numbers that we just don't want to let go of. And I think it's a curious thing to me. I love the opening numbers that we do, but rarely do we repeat an opening number. Even sometimes we just go into one of the older shows and look at a number we haven't done, like I'd Rather Leave While I'm in Love, Touch Me in the Morning, and just review it for our own joy, and because they almost made it into the next show, but they didn't. I think part of it is cabaret demand. You have to know when your audience has seen the show enough. And
well, I want to talk about that for just a moment. Excuse me for interrupting, but
no, that's all right.
It must be incredibly frustrating when you know that you've created something with such alchemy, such chemistry, that, as wonderful as it is, even with great reviews, that it's sometimes, for whatever the reasons may be, it just doesn't find that audience. And, now what's happening is that as we're starting to emerge again, and people are starting to come back into live performing again, the floodgates have opened, and everybody's trying to get that audience.
Yes.
And not only are people trying to get that audience right now, but there are a lot of people that are still very cautious about going out again. So it must be incredibly frustrating for everybody out there on both sides of the footlights. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I'm experiencing that in the shows that I've been doing lately. I've been inviting people, and I hear, I don't know if I'm ready to go out yet. And as far as I was thinking with Sally, I would love to repeat our Kurt Weill, Kander and Ebb show of them all. I think it's maybe my favorite, and the one that has that and the Totally Noel show, the Noel Coward show, I think have a lot. I think they could have a lot of legs left in them, and could be brought to other venues besides our beloved Don't Tell Mama.
Mm-hmm. And I want to talk about one other collaboration before we start to wind down, and that's the collaboration of you and the Salon, which is what you and Mark Janis and Tanya Moberly have created over the years. Again, kudos to all of you. And it's a safe, nurturing place. And Tanya Moberly, and I say this with the utmost respect, so is the dominatrix of the Salon. Yes, she's going to make sure that everyone's going to come in and you're going to respect each other. And I love that about her. So I bow to her when I say that, and I say it as a compliment. But you've created such a great environment. Have you been involved with the Salon from the very beginning?
No, I'm really only one of many satellites of Salon. I've both hosted and guest hosted. I would love to guest host again. That is a lot of fun. That's the one where you did a great job. I remember as guest host introducing everyone, and your ability to keep the show moving is wonderful. But I had a great deal of fun doing my guest host slot. And the host is the person at the piano, and I've done that a number of times as well, which is, it's always a joy to see who comes in with what. And I found the Salon a wonderful place. I grew a great deal as a performer, because unlike the piano bar, where you are an entertainer, but you are at the service of the people there. They're like sort of coming at you with what their expectation is. And in the Salon environment, especially the way Tanya manages it, you can work on something special and bring it as an offering. And the chance to try out new material that way. I miss that Salon is now a monthly rather than weekly event, because I'm certainly capable of learning or preparing one song per week.
Mm-hmm.
It's no secret that I love to sing, and I miss the weekly Salon. I do, and I would go every week if I could.
Now, with all the work that you do you get a chance to go out just to enjoy yourself as much as you'd like?
I would say the limiting factor is more the money. There are a lot of shows that I would like to see that I can't afford to go out as often as I would like to. But I have opportunities to go out, and I do enjoy it. I like to go to theater. I like plays more than musicals in a funny way. With the current state of musicals, I'm not sure I want to see 6 people squelting as 6 wives of Henry VIII. I'm not a fan of the squelt.
Well, and so what's next for you performance-wise? What's your next performance coming up?
My next performance coming up actually is with Christine Pedi. We're doing our Christmas show, which is called Snowbiz, or I think was just short for There's No Business Like Snow Business. But I think
great show.
And it's never the same show. Every year it's a different show. And that's going to be December 10th and December 16th, and possibly December 29th, all at the West Bank Cafe.
Are they in the Cabaret Room again?
They will be in the Cabaret Room by then.
That's great. Well, we are going to wrap up, but before we go, this is my little homage to James Lipton and Inside the Actors Studio. He always ended with his questions.
Yes.
Random questions for you. And the first question is, When have you come the closest to meeting the devil in this business?
In this business.
And don't name any names.
Well, there was an actress for whom I auditioned a show I had written, and she had all kinds of strange questions, and by the time it was over, I was sort of glad that I knew she wasn't going to do the show. All right, I gave the gender away, but without naming names, that's about as much as I can say.
That's fine. That's fine. As our dear friend Russ Woolley always says, rejection is God's protection. So I'll take it. When was your career most out of control, and how did you get through it?
I think it was probably most out of control when I first moved to New York, and I was moving around to so many places and trying to grab as many piano bar gigs as I could. And I think just persistence and getting my name out there and starting to work with a few people regularly. And then I got a job playing music at the Actors Movement Studio, Lloyd Williamson's thing. And that was like an anchor of, you know, as close to a day job as I have ever gotten. Was playing for classes and such things. I'm not sure I've got my career under control, Richard.
I'm still working on it myself.
Yeah.
What is the nicest thing that anyone has ever said to you in this business?
Oh, you know, I just did a show with Kathy Taylor yesterday, and she sent me the loveliest text and thanked me for bringing out the music in all of us. And I thought that was a lovely thing to say.
That is wonderful. God bless her. That's great. What are the best and well, this is interesting that you just said that. But letters, or text. What are the best and worst letters that you have ever received in the mail? And again, don't give away any names.
Received in the mail. Well, can I name the IRS as my least favorite?
Absolutely. That you can name.
And I think the best letter I ever received was from my sister. She was working at a resort, and she sent me a letter, and I don't remember what the letter said. I always loved receiving letters from well, I'll name her name, Carol. And she wrapped up a dill pickle because she knew how much I loved the pickles at this resort. The letter was an absolute mess, and I just loved it.
Oh, that's wonderful. I love that. Whose smile in this business can most easily seduce you?
Ooh. That's smile. Wow. Seduce. The fact that I can't come up with an answer right away tells me I don't know that I've ever been quite seduced by a smile.
Oh, that's good. Should we move on to the next question?
Yes.
What is the strongest willpower that you have ever displayed?
I think not having a tantrum after a gig where I was not paid. I wanted to throw things and generally act out. and I
Wow.
didn't.
Wow. God bless you. I like this next question. What is the recurring dream that you most enjoy? Or do you have recurring dreams?
I have recurring dreams. I would say the ones I most enjoy involve music. I will hear something, and I remember that I was hearing something, and an alarm went off, and I was not quite ready for it to go off. It was just the piece of music was just starting. I sometimes dream in score. I see the music in score as I hear it, and those would be my favorite recurring dreams.
Wow, I like that. Who is the person most similar to you in the world? Or who is the person that you think is most similar to you in the world?
I'm trying to. Isn't it funny? Is this where I can name names, or
Yes, if you'd like. Of course, you can name it on this one.
on this one? Well, the name that came to mind was Alex Rybeck, who has the most wonderful career.
Yes,
But
absolutely. And that's great. That's a great answer. And this is going to be my last question to you. What is the worst crime that you've ever committed?
Well, I'm going to go back to my mother on this one, who said at one time that she would defend me on anything, that she would back me up on anything unless it were drugs or a morals charge. And all I could say was, what else am I going to be arrested for?
Oh my God, Matthew. I've loved you for years. I've loved every time that I've had a chance to work with you. I don't know that I've ever had a chance to tell you that. So
no, thank you.
Yeah. So, and I really mean that. I'm not just saying this because there are a lot of people watching. So they're going to hold me accountable for saying that. So thank you for being here today. Thank you, Sarah, darling, for suggesting this. Don't go anywhere for a moment.
I won't.
I want to thank everybody for being here today. As I say, and this is not just lip service, and again, I can speak for Matthew when I say this, those of us who are in this business, we don't take it for granted that when you spend a little time with us, it means a lot to us. So thank you for being here. And anytime that Matthew is playing for anyone, if you can get a ticket or be there virtually, please do show up, go and support live shows if you can. If you're nervous about going to shows right now, find out if they are going to be live streaming and drop $5 if you can, or a little bit more if you can, and support the artist, because we're all struggling here to make it a living in this business. If this is your first time here at Richard Skipper Celebrates, right on my banner on Richard Skipper Celebrates is a button, and it says join the celebration. Now, my dear friend Charlotte Lebov, who is here, she knows this because I drove her crazy, going back and forth saying, well, what do I want to get rid of the word subscribers, because the word subscriber is like a faceless entity, and I want to get rid of it. So I'm going through all these names. What do I call people? And then I said, I don't need to call them anything. Just join the celebration. Click on that button and check out the over 300 other 350, I think, other people that I've celebrated on this platform. And hopefully, God willing, there will be 350 more. My goal is to celebrate artists and their body of worth. I also want to let you all know that I have a guide that goes out every Monday morning. I've been working on it all day today, and it will be hitting your mailbox tomorrow morning, actually at midnight tonight. If you go to richardskipper.com and hit subscribe to the Skipper Guide. And it's right there. And you're not going to believe I've got Renee Taylor coming up this week. We're celebrating Tommy Tune. A lot of exciting people in the days ahead. So go to richardskipper.com and sign up for the Skipper Guide. Leave a comment. Share this with your friends. Tell your friends, and then reach out to me and let me know what I can do to make your lives a little bit better. Because as my dear friend David Friedman always says, we're all in this together, but we're not in the same boat. And I always say, if you're going to be out in a boat, make sure you bring a skipper along. Now, something I want you all to do is to go to your Facebook friends list. And I want you to go to the 7th name that pops up. And I want you to reach out with a phone call. Not an email message, not a text message, not a private inbox message, but a phone call. And let that person know what they mean to you. Because you never know what tomorrow holds for any of us. Now, Matthew, I'm going to leave the screen. I know you're thinking, I thought he had never shut up. I'm going to I'm going to leave the screen, and you've got the final word. Anything that you want to say about anything that we talked about today that you want to expound upon, anything that we didn't talk about that you wish we had, or just any final message that you want to put out to everyone watching. And don't worry about how to end it. As soon as you say goodbye, I will take us right out. And thank you for being here today. Thank you for the gifts that you've given to the world and that you're going to continue to give. Thank you.
Wow, so this is very exciting. I really want to thank Richard again for reaching out to me and making this such a good time for me. There were a couple of upcoming performances that I didn't have a chance to mention. Just one in particular, Kathy Taylor's show Life Hack is happening December 11th. That's a Saturday at Don't Tell Mama at 4 o'clock, and it's her last of her 4 shows. And if you have a chance to come down and see it, it's kind of a unique blend of stand-up performance art and songs. And I have a great band. We have Sadi Zain and Rex Benincasa on percussion and bass. I guess a couple of things to put out there. I'm also a teacher, and I love to coach people and singers. I'm teaching at Paradance Dance Center. I'm teaching young dancers who have never sung before. They're singing for the first time in their lives, and that is just a real thrill for me. And I also am interested in anyone who out there who perhaps has some idea for a show they've been dying to write. I've been looking for a new project, so I'm going to just put out in the universe that I'm looking for a new writing project, and see if there's maybe a writing partner out there for me. And I think with that, I'm going to say goodbye, and thanks so much for watching.